go. I do not see a green light.
No, there's no green light.
Nope.
No. Is there a button or something? Inside there. There you go. Yes, green light.
Right.
Right.
Morning, Chris.
Good morning. My name is Nora Mulligan, and I am your worship associate this morning. Please rise in body and/or spirit and join in singing hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us, in your gray hymnal.
Good morning. I'm Gunnell Rydstrom. I'm a member of a board of trustees. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley. Whether you have been with this congregation a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Whatever your heritage, we welcome you. And we respectfully acknowledge the territory on which the church building sits as the ancestral homeland of the Munsee, Lenape, and Wappinger people. There are 4 brief announcements. This Friday, October 21st, we will host Bob Reardon's potluck and slideshow in Fellowship Hall, starting at 6:30. And if you have questions, please contact Daria or myself. And this Saturday, October 22nd, we will be having a kids' night out from 5:30 to 9 p.m. Parents, bring your kids to the Fellowship Hall for a night of food, stories, games, and fun, while you get a chance to spend some time away from the kids doing whatever. Please RSVP to Jane Podell. And reminder, the startup workshop will be on Saturday, October 29th from 2 to 5 p.m. If you feel a connection to this congregation, you are invited and welcome. It's a chance for us to share with Reverend Daniel what makes us tick and how we got to be who we are, so we can move forward together in joy. There will be activities for the children as well. So if you are bringing your kids, please let Jane Podell know so that as soon as possible, so we can plan for them. And today, the Arts Committee is having a half-price sale of everything in the boutique. Come downstairs and purchase some handmade and unique items that will be great gifts at really low prices. Finally, a save a date for Friday, November 4th at 6 p.m. The UUCHV, in partnership with the Croton Diversity and Inclusion Committee, is honored to present a screening of a powerful documentary, Look Away, Look Away. And the screening will be followed by a Q&A with the director of the documentary, Patrick O'Connor. Mark your calendars now and stay tuned for more details. So that is Friday, November 4th at 6 p.m. in our Fellowship Hall. For the most up-to-date information, please refer to our weekly e-newsletter and check the website frequently. The website is also the place where you can find contact information for staff, board members, and other congregational leaders. If you're present in the sanctuary, please join us for actual coffee hour in Fellowship Hall after the service. If you are watching the live stream, you are invited to check in with members and friends on Zoom. You will find the Zoom link at the end of the live stream or at the very bottom of yesterday's email announcement. If you have recently joined us and would like to receive a weekly e-newsletter, please email us your name and we will make sure you are added to the e-news list. We can also answer questions you might have. The email address is uucroton@gmail.com, or fill out the yellow card from back of the pews and drop it in the collection plate. For those of you here in the sanctuary, please silence your cell phones at this time. And once again, we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of the Hudson Valley.
Good morning. Unitarian Universalism is a wisdom-seeking tradition. From Manila, Philippines to Augusta, Maine, congregations this morning will be lighting a chalice to honor our traditions of religious freedom and the hope that there are loving sanctuaries for all people in this earth. We are invited to grow as religious seekers who honor all people, all souls, in a world that often prefers to build our 8 ethical principles, reminding us of all that we do to honor the worth and dignity of every person and build a beloved community. I now invite one of our leaders, Isla, to ring the bell for our 8 principles. Yes. And may those bells remind us to seek wisdom and bring a joyful noise to the world. Thank you.
Our chalice lighting this morning is by Bruce Southworth. For the gift of this day, and for our community of spiritual nurture and compassion, we give thanks. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. May our many sparks meet and merge in communion of heart and soul. Now please join me in our Unison Affirmation. The words are printed in your order of service. Inspired by love, our mission is to seek our true nature, connect deeply and openly, and act for justice.
Our time for all ages this morning is a meditation from someone who we're going to hear more about later today. But this, across spiritualities, very similar to our own. Like a lot of us, the last few years have been very difficult. She's involved in interfaith activism, and as anyone can imagine, the last 5 years have been a time of much anger and division. And perhaps, like her, sometimes we feel overworked, whether in our work, whether in our school, whether just in our day-to-day lives. And so let's listen to what Valerie has to say. She writes, I had been made to believe that overwork was the only way to make a difference. I had come to measure my sense of worth by how much I produced, how well I responded, especially to email, and how quickly I had worked for so long and so hard at such great speeds that I had become accustomed to breathlessness. I could not remember the last time I had a long night of rest, or gazed at the night sky, or danced. I told myself that it was for a good reason, that the need was so great and our work was so important. Perhaps you have felt this way. She reminds us, you don't have to make yourself suffer in order to serve. You don't have to grind your bones into the ground. You belong to a community and a broader movement. Your life has value. Your community has value. You will not last in the work for transformation if you are not breathing. We will not transform the world if we are not caring for each other. And she invites, place a hand on your chest. Take a deep breath. Feel your belly fill up. Take a deep breath and hold the inhale for 4 counts. Feel the suspension and exhale. Feel your heart beating in your chest. You are alive. And whether you're watching us on live stream or you're right here in this sanctuary, you are alive. Look around wherever you find yourself. What is the most beautiful color that you can see right now? Look at it. Notice it. How does the light fall upon it? Let yourself wonder. No matter what is happening outside in the world, what you just saw is real. It exists. It's beautiful. And this world is just as real as the world of aches around us out there and inside. So let's take another breath. Who can you share this beautiful time, this beautiful color, this beautiful moment with? Let us transform the world, and let us be attentive to our breath.
Our reading this morning is selections from See No Stranger by Valerie Carr. I believe that deep wisdom resides within each of us. Some call this voice by different names: Spirit, God, Jesus, Allah, Om, Buddha, nature. Others think of this voice as the intuition one hears when one is in a calm state of mind. My friend Jeremy calls the voice his inner professor, his teacher. My teammate Melissa calls hers best friend. Whatever name we choose, listening to our deepest wisdom requires disciplined practice. The loudest voices in the world right now are ones running on the energy of fear, criticism, and cruelty. The voices we spend the most time listening to in the world and inside our own minds shape the way we see, how we feel, and what we do. When I spend time listening to people who are speaking from their deepest wisdom, I can feel understanding, inspiration, and energy nourish the root of my own wisdom. But I must not lose myself at the feet of others. My most vigilant spiritual practice is finding the seconds of solitude to get quiet enough to hear the wise in me. The voices we spend the most time listening to in the world and inside our own minds shape the way we see, how we feel, and what we do. Let us now bear witness to the joys and sorrows experienced in our community. If you have a brief yet personally significant joy or sorrow that you're willing to share, please come up to the microphone and speak loudly so that everyone, including the people at home, can hear you. If you would prefer to only have a candle lit without speaking, please just stand and I will light a candle for you.
Okay. Our good friend Stacy told us yesterday that her mother, Noreen Schneider, passed away. I know she's had a difficult few years, and it's hard for my friend Stacy, and she was greatly appreciative when I asked if she would like me to have her candle lit in honor and remembrance of her mother, Noreen Schneider.
Hello, Caroline Staples. I'll be leaving tomorrow, going back to my daughters in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and we'll see you guys right after Christmas. But we just had to come east for Cornelia Cotton's 95th birthday. I've known her since 1959 when she was the receptionist at the Bennett Conservatory of Music, and I was walking from the high school with my guitar once a week to get lessons from Ann Bennett. So it was really important to me to be there for her 95th.
We also acknowledge all the unspoken joys and sorrows held within the sanctuary of our hearts, and all those people who have yet to find a spiritual home where they can share their joys and sorrows.
Now is the second time in our service today we take a moment for meditation and prayer. Let's recenter. Particularly this morning, I'm thinking of those in our community who are sick or recovering from illnesses. I'm thinking of friends and family or mourning loss of a loved one. I'm thinking of all those watching now who just want a moment to connect. And all of us here in this room, that we may find peace and connection on this day. I offer this prayer. Spirit of life and rainbow, bigger than the universe and smaller than a grain of sand, we find ourselves in a world in so much flux. We fear the unknown and tremble at what the world may be in a few months. But help us to remember amidst all of these aches and uncertainties, the cosmic color red and yellow and orange that are surrounding us every day. The fact that even in a time that is so cruel, that people choose to be kind, that we can choose to be kind, that we are not isolated, that we are part of a bigger whole, and that we can grow more connected and more beautiful if we stay awake to those connections which seem so hidden but perhaps are just around the corner. So beckon us to love, Spirit of life and rainbow. May we seek and bring kindness. May we seek and bring openness to the moment. May we seek and be with one another and all in need. May it be so. I invite you to join in a special meditative hymn, number 184, Be Ye Lamps Unto Yourselves. This rain is just beginning. Into the ark, for where else can you go? You poems for a single voice, private exultations, unnecessary talents, surplus curiosity, short-range sorrows and fear, eagerness to see things from all six sides. Rivers are swelling and bursting their banks. Into the ark, you details, ornaments, and whims, silly exceptions, forgotten signs, countless shades of the color gray, play for play's sake, tears of mirth. As far as the eye can see, there's water and hazy horizon. Go into the ark. Plans for the distant future, joy, indifference, admiration for the better. Choice not narrowed down to one or two outworn scruples, but go into the ark, time to think it over, and believe that all this will come in handy someday. For the sake of the children that we still are, fairy tales have happy endings. That's the only finale that will do here. The rain will stop, the waves will subside, the clouds will part in the cleared up sky, and they'll be once more what clouds ought to be, lofty and rather light-hearted in their likeness to thing right now, in our personal lives and in this bigger moment. And those realities are real, and those pains are true, and the aches are authentic. And walking alongside everything painful about this moment, there is goodness. There is goodness. Everything that is healing and beautiful and good and meaningful about this moment is also true. As people of faith, as truth seekers, we are called to ask, how can we seek and build the good in a world where so much seems designed to stop the good from growing? Valerie Carr reminds us the voices we spend the most time listening to in the world and inside our own minds shape the way we see, how we feel, what we do. She calls us in, inviting us to demand until our dying breath, there be no more bystanders. So as we enter this 10th anniversary of Sandy, we think about hurricanes, violent windstorms with pounding heavy rain, embodied reminders of how much we don't actually control. Growing up, I was shaped by stories of hurricanes and the devastation wrought by them. As a little child, I heard from elders in my family and in the school about stories from the hurricane of '54, the hurricane of '38, catching the last trolley outside of the downtown. And all around my birth city are plaques commemorating high water tides and the loss of life that resulted from those hurricanes. If I learned anything about hurricanes growing up, it was that there's a lot we can't control. But you can control and plan for what you can. 10 years ago, Hurricane Sandy's trajectory brought to the Atlantic coast, our coast, a superstorm so vast that millions of people lost power, hundreds of thousands of families had their lives disrupted, some still to this day. In the aftermath of 9/11, there was an interview with one of the emergency management planners for the city of New York, and they asked him what his biggest fear was. And even a few years after 9/11, he said, coastal flooding is my biggest concern. In the official history of New York City's housing authority, it recounts that during Hurricane Sandy, over 386 buildings were without heat or hot water. Hundreds of trees were uprooted, sand piles accumulated 4 feet, which is just to the base of our chalice in some of the buildings. And hundreds of thousands of people had their lives changed. And thousands of people chose to connect with their neighbors in response to this devastation. Across the coast, from Atlantic City to Red Hook, from Rockaway to Staten Island, as the waters rose and basements were flooded and memories were tossed in different directions, people tried to find ways to connect. As I've been reading some reflections on the 10th anniversary, one story really stood out to me. And it's about a community at Confucius Plaza, which is a 44-story building in Lower East Side. 760 units, 760 different families, different types. And according to Jennifer Hawk, Confucius Plaza was actually completed in 1977, and it remains one of the largest buildings in that area. It's a big red brick apartment tower. But construction had been going on for a long time. It started in the early 70s. And this monumental building, which is located in the neighborhood Chinatown, originally had no jobs or involvement from the Asian American community in the neighborhood. In fact, a still existing civil rights group, Asian Americans for Equality, was formed in the 70s when young student activists worked with restaurant and garment workers to organize protest to demand that this building and the construction reflect concerns from the community and start hiring workers from the neighborhood and have more input from families on what type of school buildings should be constructed as part of this complex. The hurricane the community faced at that time was racism, but the community was not a bystander to it. But the people across generations worked together to demand something more responsive. Some of the protest songs that the young activists sang were inspired by a folk group, Yellow Pearl, and had lines like, "We can be the player or a pawn, and together we all can take a stand." So decades later, this building that came about in response to changes brought by activism faced a tremendous challenge. 44 stories tall, no power in the aftermath of Sandy. Imagine an elder on the 34th floor, no running water, no heat, no electricity. How could the community respond? Wellington Chen, who's the executive director of the Chinatown Business Improvement District, recently told Gothamists this. He said, I actually saw many acts of kindness after Sandy, but the most vivid was at Confucius Tower. In the aftermath, residents organized and worked together, and in those 44 stories of stairs, people took turns on different levels, and they created a chain of water where bottled water jugs could get brought up to the different floors and shared with residents. People were not alone. And this building that had been born and changed from collaboration in a time of profound crisis worked together. Mr. Chen said, talk about being united. Talk about human connectivity. That is when we are truly connected, because that is the moment we came together to help one another. 44 stories in the air. At our best, a core aspect of the Unitarian and Universalist tradition is to seek and honor the dignity of every person. In Universalist language, all souls. The invocation to honor all souls actually leads to the fact that one of the most popular names of Unitarian Universalist congregations is All Souls. Whether in Manhattan, or Westchester, or Eastern Connecticut, or Western Michigan, all over this country, in fact, all over the world, you can find Unitarian Universalist congregations named All Souls. And that is because it speaks to this profound vision of connection. Nancy McDonald Ladd, who is one of our ministers in Maryland, not at a church named All Souls, asks us to consider the brief, beautiful parable of the mustard seed from a universalist lens. The original ancient text reads, "The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that a person took and tossed into their garden. The mustard seed grew and became a tree that the birds of the sky roosted in it." That would be a different tree. But the tree of heaven, the birds roosted in their branches. Short, simple, rich in imagery of plants, farmers, gardeners, birds, the deepness of the everyday. And Reverend Nancy interprets it this way. In other words, the kingdom of heaven is like a dandelion that grows higher than the redwoods. A mustard seed is a shrub. It's a bush. It's the notion that the sacred ultimate finds the form of a mustard seed bush is a bit absurd, just like a dandelion growing higher than the redwoods is. Well, that doesn't make any sense. But she writes, everything that we think is sacred is upended by the odd, imperfect things we overlook. Everything that we think is sacred is upended by the odd, imperfect things that are overlooked. In other words, the ultimate connections are not just places where some birds grow. And the ultimate connections are not just found at the temples of the emperors and the aristocrats. No, the ultimate connections are found in the everyday, in dandelions, in mustard seeds, in spaces where all of us can connect, can choose to connect. In the house of the eternal, there are many rooms, and there is room for you. Reverend Petra Tomes, who is a minister in our tradition, who lives in Westchester, is the executive director of the Rampo Muncie Lenape Community Center in New Jersey, about a 45-minute drive from our congregation. And she is dedicated to helping our tradition grow a muscle to keep expanding who we see in that web of holy. And through work for anti-racism, through work for community building, through work for reconnection to the communities that have stewarded this land for so long, she sees the possibility for a deepening. Reverend Petra writes, in this society, we often point fingers at each other instead of recognizing what is happening systematically. It's probably because we might be afraid of things that feel outside of our control. If we do not know the truth that history teaches us, we're destined to repeat it. Knowing our history allows us to decolonize, to recognize what we are doing and what is just and unjust. If we know better, then we can do better. End quote. If we want to be free, and you know this, if we want to be free, we need to work for a world and a workplace and a home and a town and a neighborhood and a region where all are free. Otherwise, we're taking care of ourselves, maybe even our group, but ignoring, or worse, causing someone else's or another community's suffering. The kingdom of connection is not just for some birds, but for all of them. All life is connected. Each day gives us a chance to be in that staircase and pass a water jug to someone else. Valerie Carr calls us in, until our dying breath, let there be no more bystanders. This month, as we've seen in Puerto Rico and Florida, other communities are suffering from hurricanes. Later today, in our second collection, we'll do a special call for the hurricane disaster relief. I had a phone call on Friday with Reverend Ben Atherton Zeman, who is the minister in St. Petersburg, Florida, and he was emphatic. He said, my congregation turned out pretty well. Some of the windows got blown out, a little flooding, but really nothing we're concerned about. But some of the communities in Florida have just been devastated, and some of the congregations in Florida have been devastated. We have a chance to pay it forward as people came to our region 10 years ago. And in a moment, you'll hear from our Share the Plate collection for this month, and you'll find out how in our local community, little circles of connection are blossoming and blooming. Everything that is evil and painful and wrong about this month is true. But everything that is healing and beautiful and good about this month and this time is also true. And even with the profound hurricanes in our time, the hurricanes of political xenophobia and violence, the hurricanes of illness and racism and pandemic, the hurricanes of isolation and loneliness, we have a chance to choose. We have an opportunity, like we did last weekend, to make crafts with dozens of families. We have an opportunity to pass water bottles up flights of stairs for connection. We have opportunities to be with the ever-present now. May we show up. May we be present. May it be so.
Each week, we make an offering from the bounty we are blessed to enjoy. We do this in a spirit of love and generosity, aware that we have benefited from those who have gone before, those who, in their turn, gave generously. Our offering goes to support the work of love and justice undertaken by this community. Today's offering will also be shared with the Ossining Micro Fund. The fund is a nonprofit organization offering interest-free loans to individuals and families who experience unexpected financial obstacles. For more information, visit the website at Ossining Micro Fund Organization. Today, we welcome Barbara Lalicki to say a few words about the Ossining Micro Fund and their vision to pay it forward.
Well, thank you, Nora and Reverend Daniel, and all of you for having me here to talk about the microfund. As Nora just said, we are an all-volunteer, not-for-profit organization. We can give loans to people of up to $2,500 to meet a financial emergency. I volunteered to be part of the microfund because I was feeling like so overwhelmed by, as you say, how terrible the nation seemed to be, the world seemed to be, and everything. And I saw that this was something that I could do that would be local, it would be immediate, and it would be direct. And I've really found it, volunteering, to be quite a learning experience. Our applicants are basically the working poor. These are the people that we depend on, often very heavily for help. They are workers in warehouses, supermarkets, factories. They are healthcare workers. They are child carers. And they are often people who are working 2 jobs just to stay on top of things. And they're kind of like, they're going along and keeping their heads above water. And all of a sudden, some emergency strikes, and it's like the whole house of cards is just going to fall down. And this is where a loan from the Ossining Microfund can really make a really significant difference. For example, not most, but a good proportion of the people who come to us, their car broke down. And if they can't pay to get the car repaired, they can't get to work. And you see how catastrophic that is, even though a loan of up to $2,500 can really help make a very significant difference. Our loan application process is very quick and it's very thorough. We try to give a loan within 2 weeks. We can often do it within days because everyone is aware that we're really dealing with an emergency situation. They need the money. An important part of the loan process is that the people need to promise that they're going to pay back the loan. And that is because we feel an obligation to the people who donate to keep your money in circulation, pay it forward, so it's ready for the next person who comes along and they need a loan. And it's also part of general financial education for people. You have a responsibility to pay back this loan. So to conclude, if you would like to give more than maybe you're able to give today or you plan to give today, you can go to our website, osningmicrofund.org, and make a further donation. You can volunteer. You can imagine we would love volunteers. And if you'd like to know more about it, I'll be here in the coffee hour and happy to talk. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
As you know, as we've talked about, there's going to be a second collection today that's going to go to the UUA Disaster Fund. This money is going to be used for congregations and people who are suffering from Hurricane Ian. They came forward for us when our area was hit by Hurricane Sandy, so we are in fact paying it forward. Thank you. I didn't even give the line. You can make your donation in several ways. Sorry about that. If present in the sanctuary, you may give cash or a check in the offering plate as it comes by. You may also scan the QR code in your order of service from your homes. You can make your donation via credit card or PayPal using the links provided in the e-newsletter. Please remember to give a little extra to compensate for the 3% surcharge, or if you prefer, you can always mail us a check. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. Please join me in the dedication of the offering. The words are in your order of service. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith. Now please join us, rise in body and spirit, and join us in singing hymn number 346 in the gray hymnal, Come Sing a Song with Me. please join me in extinguishing the candle? The words are found in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
It's a good sign the candle doesn't want to go out. It's a sign of our faith this morning. In the spirit of life and connection and all that is holy and beautiful and good, may we be inspired to be present with one another. May we remember to take a breath. And may we help one another. May it be so. Would you join in a moment of pause as we listen to our beautiful postlude answering the call of love?